Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess Spice. Today we are at the next topic, that is how to practice before tournament, and we are going to look at an endgame study. We are going to discuss two positions today, and as we have been doing, we have done calculation practice, we have done some endgames. Today we are taking the endgame studies. See, the endgame studies are very useful for improving calculation and also our imagination of position, the piece placings, and some imaginative idea, some unusual idea is the main theme in these studies. See, like this is the first position here, white to play and win. We can see that the black pawn is queening. Let's say white just plays some bishop move to queen his pawn. Then see, after h1 queen, bishop takes, rook takes, check, kg6, and the black rook comes to h8 on time and takes the a pawns easily. So what should white do here? So white goes with the only move bishop h1. This is absolutely necessary to stop the pawn from queening. Now see, rook h1 forced, and what is the point? See, a pawn is going to queen, but see, black has a very strong move. After a8 queen, there is the only move rook d1. See, the rook stops both checks, queen d5 and queen d8, and now see, it looks like white is in trouble. For instance, say a7, then h1 queen, queen takes, rook takes, king moves, and again rook h8, and the pawn is stopped. Black would win. So what should white do here? I think by now you must have understood white has the only move q h1, but it looks like why to give up the queen? Pawn is not queening yet. Black can use the same technique, queen rook h1, a7, but see, this time after rook d1 there is nothing. See, 8 queen switch check, kb4 and qb8 check. What happens here is after kc3 queen takes the pawn on h2 and queen versus rook is winning for white. So I have covered some positions of queen versus rook. You can check it out there how to convert this. Let's look at the next position here. This is somewhat tricky and much more complex than the previous one. In this, you have to look at a lot of defenses for black. So they will become the variations. And as we will start now, we will see what are the problems that white is facing. Right now you can see the a pawn queening and the h pawn stops the rook from reaching h1. So white needs to get the h pawn either with a check and win the game. See, the knight cannot join. After say knight e5 check, king will come to the fourth square from the knight, and then see, the knight's path is cut off. And what happens here? Knight cannot give checks, and after rook h5 just a1 queens, knight f7 check, king c6. Here luckily white will draw the game. He can place his rook to e5 and build a fortress. The fortress means we will stop the enemy king from entering into the path, and see, the knight is supporting the rook, knight itself is supported by the king, so the black king will never enter from the point d6 or the e5. So the king remains on e7 and f8 and the game would be drawn. So that leaves us with only other move here, rook h6 check. So after rook h6 check, we see that the king has very few options. Let's look at some of them. If king goes to c7, then just rook a6, a2 pawn is lost. If king moves to b5, which happens to be one of the important variations, it looks like h5 goes with check, but the king manages to come to the b2 square. Let's see how. Rook check, kb4, rook h1 forced, kb3, and see, the knight just reaches on time. Knight e5, knight d6 also works, kb2, and here white can win in both ways. nd3 is safer, and c4 also wins. Now see, after all the options, white knight manages to trade itself for the a pawn. Let's see how. See, let's say kc3, then see just rook a1. This is one of the main ideas. And now see, after kb3, knight check, kb2, rook a2, kc1, and white wins. The other move, kc2 just allows nb4 check, king moves and knight takes a2. And after kb3 also there is knight c1 check, kb2, knight a2, and white wins. So the variation kb5 is not that difficult. The main move happens to be king b7, and here there are some serious problems. What should white do? See, if he goes with knight d6 check, then this time the king goes diagonally one step away. This is another place where the king finds itself safe from the knight checks. And see, after rook h5, once again a1 queen, and at the most white can draw the game. So the only other move is knight d8 check. But it looks like what will white get by taking his knight to the corner, right? See, there are a couple of points here. If the king moves to any square other than a7, then the rook goes to a6. So that is an easy task. But if the king goes to a7, now see, knight c6 check. White is using his knight to come to b4 or the b3 square. See how, if king moves up to b6 or a6, then knight b4 check, king moves, knight takes a2, white wins. And if king b7, then see the unusual idea, knight a5 check, k7, knight b3, and the pawn is stopped. The most amusing line is king a8, and what should white do now? Do try to see if you have not got the solution so far. Still, it's not very easy. White has the only move, knight a5, the least expected one. He allows the pawn to queen, because see, knight b3 is coming now. So after a1 queen, rook check, kb8, knight check, it's a discovered attack, and after kb7, rook a1, kc6, rook just goes to h-pawn, and we win the h-pawn, and white wins very easily. So we saw some of the lines were really very tricky, and it was all about calculation of variations. To try to imagine this in your mind, it is very helpful for our overall improvement of calculation and visualization. So I hope you are finding these lessons useful and instructive. Do let me know in the comments below. Thanks for your time.